Most people believe that pain is the body's main warning signal. If something is wrong, it should hurt. If it doesn't hurt, it must be fine. That belief feels logical, comforting, and very human. And yet, when it comes to the knees, especially later in life, that belief quietly misleads millions of people every single day. What makes this so unsettling is not that knees get weaker with time. It's that they can be damaged, slowly and consistently, without sending any clear signal at all. No sharp pain, no sudden injury, no dramatic moment where you say, something just happened. Instead, the damage grows in silence, hidden behind habits that feel normal, movements that feel harmless, and routines that have been repeated for decades. Many seniors walk, climb stairs, stand up from chairs, kneel, garden, shop, travel, and live their lives, believing their knees are holding up just fine. And in a way, they are. Until one day they're not. The surprise isn't the discomfort when it finally appears. The real shock is how long the problem was developing without being noticed. This is why so many people say, "My knee just suddenly went bad," when in reality, it had been whispering for years, just not in the language of pain. To understand why this happens, you have to let go of the idea that pain always comes first. Pain is often late to the conversation. By the time it shows up, the body has already adapted, compensated, and reshaped itself around the problem. The knee, in particular, is very good at this kind of quiet adjustment. It's a joint designed to carry you through decades of movement, not just dramatic moments of stress. Because of that, it learns how to work around trouble long before it complains. Inside the knee, there are surfaces meant to glide smoothly, cushions meant to absorb shock, and structures meant to keep everything aligned. Over time, these parts don't suddenly fail. They wear, thin, stiffen, and shift in small increments. And the body, always focused on keeping you moving, adjusts how you walk, how you stand, and how you load weight without asking your permission. You don't feel these changes as pain. You feel them as stiffness in the morning that goes away after a few steps. You feel them as a preference for one leg over the other when climbing stairs. You feel them as standing up a little slower, but not enough to worry about. One of the biggest reasons seniors damage their knees without pain is because the knee doesn't complain when pressure is spread out gradually. Sharp injuries hurt because they overwhelm the system. Slow damage doesn't. When the knee experiences the same small stress again and again, the nervous system stops flagging it as urgent. It becomes background noise. The brain adapts. Movement patterns adapt. And what feels normal quietly shifts year after year. Think about how many times a day you sit down and stand up. Each time your knees take on a specific load. If your weight shifts slightly forward, if your feet turn out a little more than they used to, if one hip does more work than the other, the knee absorbs the difference. Not enough to hurt, just enough to matter. Multiply that by thousands of repetitions over months and years, and you begin to see how damage can accumulate without a single alarming moment. Stairs are another perfect example. Most people don't notice how they use stairs unless something hurts. They may always lead with the same leg, always push off the same side, always descend a little faster than they ascend. The knee that takes the lead becomes the worker. The other becomes the passenger. Over time, the working knee absorbs more stress than it was designed to handle alone. Still no pain, just a quiet redistribution of effort that slowly wears one side down faster than the other. What makes this especially tricky is that many seniors pride themselves on staying active, independent, and capable. They don't see themselves as fragile or limited, and rightly so. They keep moving, which is good. But they often assume that staying active automatically means staying safe. Movement is essential, but how you move matters just as much as how often. Repeating inefficient movement doesn't break you overnight. It reshapes you slowly. Another reason knee damage hides so well is that stiffness is often mistaken for age. Morning stiffness, difficulty bending fully, or needing a few steps to warm up are commonly accepted as normal parts of getting older. And while some change is natural, not all stiffness is harmless. Stiffness is often the body's way of protecting a joint that no longer moves smoothly. It limits motion to avoid irritation. But because stiffness doesn't scream the way pain does, it's easy to ignore. Many people also don't realize how much the knees depend on what happens above and below them. The knee sits between the hips and the feet, and it takes responsibility for problems that don't belong to it. If the hips become less stable, the knee compensates. If the feet lose their natural shock absorption, the knee absorbs the impact. None of this has to hurt right away. The knee is generous like that. It helps until it can't. Shoes play a surprisingly large role in this silent process. Over the years, footwear choices shape how the foot meets the ground. Cushioned soles, worn-out shoes, or overly stiff designs can change how force travels up the leg. The knee doesn't object. It simply adjusts. Each step feels fine. But the alignment changes slightly, and the joint experiences stress in areas that were never meant to handle it alone. Because this happens gradually, the body accepts it as normal. Weight changes also contribute in quiet ways. Even small increases add up when carried through the knees thousands of times a day. But the issue isn't just weight itself. It's how that weight is managed. Strong muscles distribute load. Weak or inactive muscles shift it. When the muscles around the knee stop doing their share, the joint takes on more responsibility. Again, no pain is required for this to happen. Another overlooked factor is how people rest. Sitting for long periods stiffens joints and shortens muscles. When you stand up after sitting, the knee is suddenly asked to move through a range it hasn't visited in hours. At first, it manages. Over time, that repeated stiffness to movement cycle creates friction. The body adapts by limiting motion, which feels like being a little slower, not injured. What makes knee damage without pain so common among seniors is not recklessness or neglect. It's familiarity. These movements are familiar. These sensations are familiar. The body doesn't ring an alarm for familiar stress. It saves alarms for emergencies. And by the time the knee decides something is urgent, the problem is no longer new. Eventually, pain does appear, but it often arrives late and confusing. It may show up after a long walk, a day of gardening, or a trip where you were more active than usual. People blame the activity itself, not realizing that the activity simply revealed a problem that had been building quietly. The knee didn't get damaged that day. That day just removed the illusion. What's important to understand is that this process is not inevitable. Silent damage doesn't mean unstoppable damage. Awareness changes everything. When you begin to notice how you move, how you load your joints, and how your body compensates, you regain control. The goal is not to fear movement, but to respect it. Small adjustments matter more than dramatic ones. Paying attention to how evenly you use your legs, how you rise from chairs, how you descend stairs, and how your feet contact the ground can slow or even reverse stress patterns. The body responds well to attention. It thrives on balanced effort. Another powerful shift comes from redefining discomfort. Not all discomfort is pain, and not all discomfort is harmless. Tightness, stiffness, and fatigue are information. They are early signals, not problems yet, but messages asking to be noticed. Seniors who maintain strong knees into later years are not those who never felt discomfort. They are those who listened early. There's also an emotional layer to this story that often goes unspoken. Many people don't want to admit when something feels off. They don't want to appear fragile or limited. They push through, proud of their resilience. That resilience is admirable, but it works best when paired with curiosity. Asking why something feels harder than it used to is not weakness. It's intelligence. The knees, perhaps more than any other joint, reward those who stay curious. They respond to better movement, better support, and better awareness with remarkable generosity. They don't demand perfection. They ask for balance. One of the most freeing realizations for many seniors is understanding that pain is not the first chapter of knee trouble. It's often the last. That means there is a long window of opportunity where change is possible, even when everything seems fine. By the time pain arrives, the window hasn't closed, but it has narrowed. This is why conversations about knee health shouldn't start with fear. They should start with clarity. The goal isn't to scare people into worrying about every step they take. It's to show them how much influence they still have. Control doesn't come from avoiding movement. It comes from moving with intention. When seniors learn that their knees can be protected long before pain appears, something shifts. They stop feeling betrayed by their bodies and start seeing them as partners again. They realize that the body wasn't silent out of neglect. It was adapting, doing its best with the information it had. If this perspective feels new or surprising, that's a good sign. It means you're seeing your body with fresh eyes. And if you've already recognized some of these patterns in yourself, that awareness alone puts you ahead of where you were yesterday. Take a moment to reflect on how often you rely on pain as your guide. Then imagine what would happen if you paid attention just a little earlier. That small shift in awareness can change how your knees feel, not just next year, but 10 years from now. If this kind of insight helps you feel more in control of your health and your future, take a second to support this channel. Liking the video helps these messages reach people who need them. Commenting lets others learn from your experience. And subscribing keeps you connected to ideas that protect your independence and clarity over time. Your knees may not complain loudly, but listening now is one of the smartest decisions you can make. And listening now does not require drastic changes, complicated routines, or living in fear of every movement. It starts with something much quieter and more powerful: noticing. Noticing how you stand when you're waiting in line, whether your weight always settles into the same leg. Noticing how you get out of the car. If you twist first, then stand, instead of rising straight up. Noticing whether one knee always seems to lead and the other always follows. These are not flaws, they are habits. And habits, once seen, can be softened. Most knee damage that happens without pain is not caused by doing too much. It's caused by doing the same thing, the same way for too long. The body loves variety, but daily life rarely gives it that. We sit in the same chairs, sleep on the same side, step out of bed with the same foot, climb stairs in the same rhythm. None of this feels dangerous. That's exactly why it works so quietly. There's also something important to understand about how the body prioritizes survival over comfort. If a movement allows you to keep functioning, the body will tolerate a lot to preserve it. The knee may stiffen slightly to avoid irritation. Muscles may tighten to stabilize the joint. Other joints may take on extra work. All of this happens behind the scenes. You're still walking, still shopping, still living, so the system sees no emergency. But these protective strategies come at a cost. When one area works harder to protect another, it ages faster. The knee is often the place where these costs show up first, not because it's weak, but because it's central. It's the meeting point between movement and gravity. Every step is a negotiation, and over time, those negotiations leave marks. Many seniors are surprised to learn that the absence of pain doesn't mean the absence of strain. In fact, the most damaging patterns are often the ones that feel efficient. Movements that feel smooth and automatic are the least likely to be questioned. Yet those are the exact movements that get repeated the most. Think about walking. Most people never think about how they walk. They just do it. But walking is thousands of controlled falls, caught over and over by the legs. If one knee absorbs just a little more impact each time, the difference seems insignificant, until you realize how many steps you've taken in a lifetime. Another reason knee damage goes unnoticed is because discomfort often shows up somewhere else first. A sore lower back, tight hips, a tired ankle. The knee sits in the middle and quietly passes the stress along. By the time the knee itself starts to complain, the surrounding areas have already been compensating for years. This is why some people feel blindsided by knee problems. They say, "My back was bothering me, then suddenly my knee started acting up." It wasn't sudden. It was a chain reaction finally reaching the end of the line. What's encouraging is that the same system that adapts to stress can adapt to relief. When you move with more balance, the body responds quickly. Joints are not passive objects. They are living structures that respond to how they're used. Gentle changes, repeated consistently, send a powerful signal. For example, standing up from a chair, using both legs evenly instead of pushing off one side. Pausing at the top of the movement, letting the knees fully straighten before taking the first step. Walking a little slower on uneven ground, giving the body time to adjust instead of rushing through. These moments don't feel dramatic, but they accumulate just like damage does, only in the opposite direction. Many seniors worry that paying attention to movement will make them anxious or self-conscious. In reality, it often brings relief. When you understand what's happening, uncertainty fades. You stop guessing. You stop blaming age for everything. You replace fear with information. There's also a deeper sense of dignity that comes with this awareness. You're no longer waiting for something to go wrong before responding. You're participating in your own long-term comfort. That sense of participation matters more than most people realize. One of the quiet frustrations many seniors carry is the feeling that their body makes decisions without consulting them. The knee stiffens, movement slow, confidence shifts. Understanding why these things happen restores a sense of partnership. The body isn't betraying you. It's adapting the only way it knows how. This perspective changes how people approach activity. Instead of avoiding movement out of fear, they approach it with curiosity. Instead of pushing through everything, they learn when to pause. Not because they're fragile, but because they're wise. It's also important to address a common myth, that once knee damage has started, nothing can be done unless there's pain treatment involved. This belief keeps many people passive. In reality, joints respond best before pain becomes constant. The earlier you bring awareness and balance into your movement, the more capacity the knee has to recover comfort. Even if stiffness has been present for years, change is still possible. The body doesn't measure time the way calendars do. It measures patterns. Change the pattern, and the response follows. Another overlooked element is confidence. When people feel unsure about their knees, they move more cautiously. That caution often turns into stiffness. Stiff movement increases joint stress. Stress increases discomfort. The cycle feeds itself. Breaking that cycle doesn't require bravery. It requires understanding. Understanding that your knee is not made of glass. It's resilient, adaptable, and responsive. It just needs clear signals. Balanced movement sends those signals. One of the most empowering realizations for many seniors is that protecting the knees is less about avoiding certain activities and more about how those activities are done. Gardening, walking, traveling, playing with grandchildren, none of these are the problem. The problem is repetitive strain without awareness. When awareness is present, the same activities become protective instead of damaging. Movement becomes nourishment instead of erosion. There's a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're not ignoring early signals anymore. From knowing that stiffness is being acknowledged, not dismissed. From knowing that comfort in the future is being shaped today, not left to chance. If you're listening to this and thinking, I recognize some of these habits, that's not a reason for concern. It's a reason for optimism. Recognition is the doorway to change. And if you're thinking, I wish I had known this earlier, remember that now is still earlier than later. The body responds in the present. It doesn't dwell on missed opportunities. This is why conversations like this matter. Not because they promise miracles, but because they restore perspective. They remind you that aging is not the same as losing control. It's a process that rewards attention. The knees may not shout when something is wrong, but they are constantly communicating. Through stiffness, fatigue, hesitation, and subtle shifts in movement. Learning that language gives you an advantage most people never develop. If this message resonates, if it helps you see your body a little more clearly and feel a little more confident about the years ahead, support this space. Liking the video helps it reach others who are quietly dealing with the same questions. Commenting shares experience, which is often more valuable than advice. And subscribing keeps you connected to conversations that protect your independence, clarity, and comfort over time. Your knees don't need fear. They need understanding. And understanding, once it's there, changes everything.